Cozy Corner of Cinema, episode number 141, being recorded on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 at 9:28 p.m. It's a late night for this episode, but knew I wanted to get this recorded tonight because I would not have an opportunity for the next couple of days. It's always a very busy time of the year in December. There's so many deadlines to meet. The holidays, of course, got to do your shopping. Make sure you have plenty of time for that. You're not rushing around town at the last second or trying to calculate, buying stuff online and saying, oh, is it going to arrive before Christmas or, whatever else you celebrate. And it's always good to get that stuff done out of the way early. But regardless, there's just so much to do this time of the year, and now we start reflecting on what we've accomplished this year and what we hope to accomplish, and whatever we didn't accomplish, whatever we didn't complete, well, we just keep on going and roll that forward, because everybody makes resolutions at the beginning of the new year, but how often do they actually stick with those resolutions, good lord. It's definitely a late episode. I start fumbling my words. Yeah, they start messing with those revolutions. There you go, man. But so whatever it is you are working on, I hope you are being consistent, and I hope you are staying through with it. I hope you are giving it your all. You're not half-assing it. You're really just making the best kind of product that you can. Whatever it is that you are working on in your daily life, whatever kind of artistic endeavor that you choose to partake in that drives you forward and gets you up in the morning where you say, my gosh, man, today that screenplay will be worked on. Today that film will be worked on. Today that album will be worked on. Whatever it is, just kind of chiseling away at it until you have a wonderful sculpture of a product, and then you don't stop there. You just keep on going, man. You just keep on fulfilling life's goals, life's dreams, life's destinies, man. It's not, it's like, you're sort of like, you run, like say, I'm gonna lose a bunch of weight, and then let's say you lose that weight and you're happy. You're like, all right, well now I'm all done. I don't gotta, I can eat whatever I want now. It's like, no way, Jose, man. You gotta keep that. You want to make sure you are maintaining that weight that you want, man. So if you want to lose a whole bunch of weight, maybe you're not going to go to the damn, Mickey D's down the street and have about 13 Big Macs. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, if you want to do that, hey, go for it, man. It's your life to live. But, if you lose that weight, you want to, make sure you're maintaining that weight, working out. It's like a muscle, man. You just keep on working out. You just keep on keeping on. I mean, you see all those bodybuilders, man. You think, they think they got that done overnight. I mean, hey, man, maybe some of them are using some illegal substances that they shouldn't have, but a good amount of them, man. They're putting in the time, putting in the effort. They're eating right. They're working out. They're focusing, man. They're focused on their craft, and much in the same way you read a really good novel and you're like, my gosh, this author just totally nailed it, man. They really just got the writing down. Or you see a great film and it's like, my gosh, everybody kind of came together to make this wonderful piece of work, and now we get to watch it and tell others about it. And speaking of that, we're coming to the end of the year. We have a couple more weeks until 2024 wraps up. So now is the time where I've mentioned before, people start talking about their favorites of the year. And one of the things that was really kind of throwing me off a bit was I was trying to watch, or at least I've attempted to start watching a lot of the 2024 streaming titles that didn't really get a whole lot of talk. I don't know if I talked about it last week or the week before, just how a lot of films end up kind of falling through the cracks if they're not, big studio films, or if they're not propped up by, studios like A24 or Neon, who can really kind of push these films into the light, and really kind of get them talked about, seen, get them theatrical releases. So I was really trying to find some films from this year that may have went past my radar, and I've already started doing that a little bit, and I actually found a pretty good list that the folks at Factory 25 were posted about, and I won't be able to find it now. If I can find it by next episode, I'll make sure to make a note of that. But there's a list talking about just 50 films from 2024 you may not have seen or may not have known about. And I'd actually seen not a whole ton on that list, but definitely seen at least a handful of those. Some were good, some were not so good, some were definitely favorites of the year. Some I'm just like, yeah, they're all right. For 2024 streaming stuff, I don't really I really kind of have to get either recommendations or gauge what people are really kind of talking about, or even just sometimes when it's really just like, man, I don't want to, if I'm sitting in the chair, I got the Roku remote in my hand. Sometimes I will just scroll through and just see, all right, well, what are the new streaming titles? What are the new streaming releases? You have all these services like Netflix and Mubi and Hulu and all that, and they have their own original programming. So or what they distribute, I should say, and like Shudder does that as well. So sometimes it's fun to see what they have on there, and some films that get talked more than others. I remember at the end of last year, when I just happened to try to put together some of my favorites of 2023. I saw a movie was really pushing this film, Rotting in the Sun, written and directed by Sebastian Silva, which I may have even talked about on the show. I really don't even remember. Do so many episodes at this point, you talk about so many films you forget. And they're really talking about the film, they're really pushing it. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I happened to take a chance on it. It was just, I mean, it was one of the last things I watched last year, and it ended up being one of my favorite things I saw that year. It was, I saw the poster, and I'm like, all right, I don't really know. This probably ain't going to be for me, but I thought the film was just so funny. And was just just such a total discovery where I didn't know where it was gonna go, and it gets kind of dark, but it's very funny, and yeah, X won that, but I mean, besides them posting about it, I didn't hear anybody talk about it. Even now, I don't know anyone who's seen it. So there's the first recommendation for you. If you have a movie, Rotting in the Sun is definitely worth your time. It's a very funny film. Sort of like a meta, sort of like meta. This guy, Sebastian Silva, who is a real filmmaker. He directed that film with Michael Cera a couple years ago, Crystal Fairy and the Magical Cactus, which now I would like to see it. But he basically plays a version of himself. And from what I can remember, he gets on this, I think it was like a nudist beach or something, ends up meeting this guy who is like a social media guy, and some dark things start to happen, but it's very funny. It's very good. I mean, it gets dark, but it's lighthearted, and just it's really divided into two halves, where the first half is this story, and the second half is sort of like somebody else having to deal with the first half. It's just a really cool film. Yeah, I really liked it, but one that people aren't, unless you're going online. I'm not spending time on social media, man. I think social media is just a total waste of time. I use it to talk to acquaintances, and that's about it, man. I don't have any interest in, oh my god, can you believe what this celebrity did? And you can't believe what this person did. Oh my gosh, and it's all nonsense, man. It's truly just like it's just there's nothing to gain from it. Sitting on social media all day, scrolling on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And if you want to do that, go for it, man. It's your time. You do whatever you want with it. But I've got no time or interest for any of that nonsense, man. I got no interest in just any of that. It's just a total waste of time. But you talk to people online, and they can maybe turn you on to some of these kind of films or not. Because even what I was talking about before is that the films I was talking about, like, I'm looking at some of my favorites of the year so far, and I'm like, man, some of these films no one's talking about, or at least a lot of people aren't really bringing up, or it's not being mentioned in the general kind of conversation. And there's a lot of great films coming out right now. Don't get me wrong. Put out by Neon and A24 and like Warner Brothers and all these like big kind of studios and stuff. But I think there are still a lot of stuff that are. There is still a lot of stuff that is falling through the cracks that's not really being talked about, let alone earlier in the year. I mean, I'm thinking about films I saw at the beginning of the year that are just completely forgotten about, that no one's mentioning. I'm just like, man, that's a real shame. So I plan to do kind of like I've said before, but kind of do a little, not like a best of the year, because I don't have a best of list, man. I mean, I was doing those list videos for a while, and those are fun, but I don't really like doing favorites and all that. I don't have like a favorite film, man. It's just not gonna happen. But I did want to. I have a handful of films here. I have about 49 films on this screen right here that I think are worth talking about. But there's still so much to see. There's that list I was telling you about. There's a whole bunch of films in there that I wrote down, and I plan on watching when I have the availability. So. Because for streaming stuff, what did I watch the other day? I watched Netflix Originals, a horror kind of thriller movie. It's an interesting film. It's called like What's Inside. It's I guess it's like a horror film. It's really more like a comedy thriller in a way, but it's a cool premise. It's actually I heard some people talking about it. Some acquaintances were kind of mixed on, but it was a cool idea. It's written and directed by this guy Greg Jardin. It's these group of people. They're at like a wedding party or whatever, and there's this one of these guys. His name was Forbes, or is it Forbes or Forbes? I don't remember. Yeah, Forbes. And this guy looks so familiar. I'm like, this dude looks like Mark Zuckerberg. I'm like, who is this guy? But it's this actor, and the recesses my brain. And his name is David Thompson. And I'm like, gosh, he looks so familiar. And then I looked on his IMDb, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He was. If you guys saw the movie Green Room, about the punks who get trapped in that club. He's the guy at the beginning. He lets the band stay at their his apartment. He interviews them. He has like such a unique look or like a unique face. That's why I'm like, man, where have I seen this guy from? And it's just funny how I'm like, oh, there he is, yeah. But it's an interesting film. It's like, yeah, they go play this game, and he's kind of this game master guy. He brings over the suitcase, and inside there's this really kind of crazy party game. And I don't know how much I want to give away or not, because I think part of the fun is kind of discovering it on your own. And I would say the first half is a really interesting setup. The characters weren't great, but I'm like, hey, I really like, it's doing some fun editing. There's a lot of energy behind it. It's fun. The second half does kind of lose me. Second half does become a little, I don't want to say convoluted, because I'm not saying it's like unrealistic or anything like that, but it feels like it's juggling a bit too much. And it just feels like constantly things are getting revealed, but in a way that doesn't feel like a relief. Like, oh my gosh, this is actually going on. It just keeps on going and keeps on going, and even when the movie is done, there's like an addendum and more stuff gets revealed, but not in a satisfying way. It just, man, I just really was kind of exhausted by the end of it. But it's not a bad film, man. I saw some people being kind of really down on it, and I didn't think it was a great film or anything like that. I think this probably might be better with an audience. But man, it's a lot of originality. It's a lot of fun behind this, and it's gonna be really cool for some people. But I happened to watch that just before I even intentionally wanted to watch some of these 2024 films, because one of the ones that I did watch today. That was on that list, which I actually wanted to watch anyways, but it was streaming on Canopy, so I figured I'd give it a watch anyways. Was now some of these say they're 2023, but I'm always just, if it's 2024, I'm just putting it at 2024. I'm not doing this mental math of trying to be like, oh well, it was actually released here in 2023, and I used to do that. I'm not doing that anymore, man. If I saw it this year in theaters, if it got a release here, I'm counting it, man. Because like that film Nowhere Special, I mean actually technically 2020. I saw that a couple years ago, last year or 2 years ago. But I also, it finally got released in America this year, so I'm gonna count it as 2024. I think that's a really really excellent film, and if I can prop that film up again and get more people talking about it, because no one's talking about it, it's just worth bringing it back up in the conversation without any sort of technicalities. But I watched this film Club Zero, written and directed by Jessica Hausner, and also co-written by Geraldine Bajard, and it's a pretty good film. It's one that I guess it was funny that it was on the list of just like they're really kind of talking it up. And then I saw some not so great responses to the film, and I was just like, oh, okay, I thought it was like pretty good. It's Mia Wasikowska, who is I don't know where this takes place. I mean, I think she's an Australian actor, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you what accents they were using. Anyways, I mean they're all speaking English, but anyway, she's running this like this I guess like kind of, it's not really a class. It's more like a group sort of meeting thing at this kind of not boarding school. I think it's like a regular school. I don't know. But it's like a strange kind of class. At first, it's kind of like about like weight loss and being aware of what you're eating. But then it becomes like stranger, which is talking about how you don't need food and you only need like a little bit. Like they're talking about like they're cutting up. Like these like little like potato wedges, they're cutting off like really small parts, and yeah, it doesn't all work. It's like I think most of it, it's like a lot of like build up to not a lot of not even necessarily release, because it doesn't need to have release, but I think it starts off better than it ends. But it's a cool film, man. I mean, it's an interesting. It's kind of hard to classify, because I guess you could. I mean, the genres on IMDb really. I mean, it's a comedy, I guess. It's a drama, yeah, sure. A thriller, not really. I guess it's like a really dark comedy, but not a lot of laughs. I mean, it's a drama, but it's not like brooding. It doesn't get really too dark until a certain point. You're like, oh, what are we doing here? But it's a cool film, man. A really great set design too. I loved all the costumes in this. They have all their school uniforms, which are fine, which is an interesting kind of color palette of like these purples and yellows. But just like the set design, the interiors of the school, it all kind of looks like, gosh, I don't even know. I don't want to quite say. I think I've seen that it might be like, but I'm not even gonna bother saying it because I could be completely wrong. It almost looks like futuristic retro or retro future. Is that what it is? Where it's like future from like, I mean, furniture and like designs from like the 60s 70s that we're trying to look like the future. I don't really know how to explain it, but it kind of looks like that a little bit. It's like when you have like you watch like 2001, you have that the scene early on. They're on the ship, but then you have these crazy like red chairs that just seem completely out of place. And I'm only talking about the furniture too. I'm not talking about the technology in that because, and early on when I forgot the character's name, I apologize, but he's talking to his daughter on the who was actually Kubrick's daughter, talking on the old kind of computer. I mean that I don't care about, but it's just the furniture feels more dated than the technology, ironically enough. But yeah, I mean, hey, cool films, man. I don't think either are like great. I don't think either are like some of the best of the year or anything like that. X What's Inside is okay, and Club Zero was pretty good. But these films, hey, no one, unless you're talking about them, unless you're bringing them up to people, who's gonna be watching these, man? Unless you're gonna be scrolling through, oh, okay, this looks all right, and oh, okay, this, I'm on Canopy, I'm on Netflix, and I think it's important, man, to really kind of to talk about these films, to get these films into the general kind of public conscious, and really kind of turn people on, and being like, oh, what are some of the great films like of the year? And it's like, well, have you seen this one? Have you seen this one? Because the really popular stuff, that's all great and all that, but sometimes it can kind of overshadow some of these other ones I'm talking about before, like that Rotting in the Sun, and even last year I was thinking about a movie like Fremont, which I mean I don't know anyone who saw that movie, and that was like one of my favorite things I saw last year. That was just such a really great, quiet sort of comedy drama that really came and went. But I thought it was great. I thought that was one of my favorite things I saw that year. But as we get closer, I mean, towards the end, I'll bring up some other films that I quite like this year. Actually, the other day I saw, one of the very, very best films I saw this year. I'll talk about that on another episode, but I'm not making like a list or anything like that. Like I said, I'm not doing like a top whatever. But if I did, that would definitely be up there in the conversation as like the top kind of like couple. But I'll talk about that film when the time comes. But speaking of 2024 films, last time I was talking about Clint Eastwood as director, and I was like, what is going on with this new film, man? It's not getting any kind of it's really not getting much of a theatrical release. It's really just like, what is going on here? And actually, funnily enough, and the film I'm talking about, by the way, is Juror #2, I meant to say here. And actually, as I look it up, it says Showtime's near me. Now, where is this theater? Because it wasn't playing anywhere near me, and I'm just curious. I'm not going to tell you what theater it is, but I'm going to keep an eye out. Let's see. How far away of a location is this from me? Because I don't think it's that close. The closest theater playing it is an hour and 7 minutes away. So I guess that's not too bad, but still, for a film like this, you figured it would have gotten like a wide release. But anyways, yeah. But anyways, I watched Juror #2. It just came out on VOD. It was $10. Rented it. I wanted to see it, man. I was talking about Clint Eastwood's directed films before, and I think that his track record as of late, it's been hit or miss, but I think he still has some. Occasionally, he'll do something really cool and interesting. I was talking about how Flags of Our Fathers really kind of knocked the wind out of me. I was surprised at it, just how good it was, and how I just really hadn't heard it brought up. And like Richard Jewell was good. I thought that was a good film, but then some other stuff like Cry Macho and The Mule, and and then they're not great. And then like Sully and American Sniper, I think are both good films, but neither one of those films really stuck with me. But Juror #2, it feels like a really just kind of like a really kind of breath of fresh air for contemporary sort of films, man. It feels like a film that, I say it often, but it really does kind of feel like a film made for adults, man. It's just a solid, not like a great film. I don't want to hype it up like some like an amazing film, but it's a really solid, mature court drama, like a legal kind of drama. It's just a legal thriller here, but it's like a legal drama. It's a great, interesting story about like morality. We have Nicholas Holtz playing this character. He's at home with his pregnant wife, but and he's called to jury duty, and without giving too much away, he may be involved somehow with somebody who is on trial, and I'll leave it at that. But It's got a good cast: Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette, J.K. Simmons, Kiefer Sutherland, Zoe Dutch, Cedric Yarbo, who where the hell have I seen that guy? He has such a familiar. Oh, I think he was on Reno 911. Yeah, that's right. He was on that show. Um, Chris Messina. So it's a good cast, and you know it's a good film, man. I really really enjoyed myself watching this. It really kind of avoids all the pitfalls that I think some of Clint Eastwood's directed films of the past 10, 15, maybe even 20 years kind of fall into me, where it's a lot of melodrama. There's the character moralities are just like, they're just nonsense. It's like, I remember like when I was watching Million Dollar Baby, which isn't a bad film, man, but I remember I was just so turned off by like the good guys are good and the bad guys are bad. It was just too damn obvious, man. They're really, but it's not a bad film, man. I think Morgan Freeman actually really kind of steals a lot of the film for me. You know, he's really solid. Clint does a really good job. Hilary Swank, you know, actually the main three players, Hilary Swank, Clint Eastwood, and Morgan Freeman are all solid in the film. It's just a script that I don't really think is all that great, and I don't believe he wrote the script for that. And he didn't write the script for this. This was written by Jonathan A. Abrams, but it's a good kind of morality tale where you know we're not exactly given the whole story right off the bat, but we have Nicholas Holt's character where he's really kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's like, what does he do in this situation? And it becomes almost like a variation on 12 Angry Men, where it becomes, you know, these all these jurors in a room having to at first just being like, well, yeah, this guy is obviously guilty, let's just get the hell out of here. And Nicholas Holt's like, nah, man, we really got to talk this out, man. We can't be nonchalant like this. But at the same time, it's like he has to kind of get through it. He has to be fast because he's got his pregnant wife at home, and the case keeps getting pushed. And man, it's like, it's just bizarre that Warner Brothers would be so quick to bury this. I mean, you know, I remember reading somewhere, I don't know how true this is, but I was reading a thing that it was saying that Warner Brothers had theatrically released his last couple of films solely as sort of a gesture of kindness. I don't think any of them did very well. And maybe that's what they thought here. They thought maybe that, you know, this probably wasn't going to do very well, so we don't really need to release it. But you know, Cry Macho was released right. You know, I think that was like 2021. So that was like pretty much you know, when theaters were opening back up and stuff during the pandemic. Which didn't get the best reviews, and yeah, the movie was all right. I mean, it's great to see Clint on the screen, but it's not one that I've seen since the theater. But Juror number 2, am I gonna watch again? Probably not. But I'm like, man, what a solid adult court drama. It's like I was really engaged with the man, and then where it goes to in the third act, I was like, man, this is the ending of the film. I was like, man, we're not given. There's still some ambiguity, but man, I feel like when it was over and the credits came up, it said directed by Clint Eastwood. I was like, wow, man, if this is his last film, I mean, the man is what, 93, 94. If this is his last film, man, it's almost like he's wanted to keep making these films so he could go out on like a last film, like a last like really good film like this, man. Because I think if this does end up being his last, then he will be in that club of directors who ended their career on a high note. Because you know I went through his filmography last time, just quickly talking about the films I had seen. I didn't go in depth at all in any of them, but I mean, obviously, you know, I've been doing films directing films since 1971 with Play Misty for me, and the fact that you know 1971 to 2024, he's still going. He's still not only making passable films. That's one thing to make a passable film, especially when you have nothing left to prove. You're a director, well, not even just director. I mean, you're a pop culture icon. You're I think one of the great actors, one of the last great movie stars really of our time. Or of not our time. I'm sorry. I don't want to imply like our time. I mean like the last generation of like these really kind of these names that could sell you a movie ticket without even knowing what it's about. And the fact that you can have such a sustained career like that and end it on something like this, you know, it was just really. Man, I just like I'm thinking back to just some of the movies I've seen this year, and just some where I'm just, you know, and I repeat myself, but I'm like, man, I just feel like, man, these movies, I feel like I'm in like a damn amusement park. Like, what is this nonsense? And then I see a movie like this, and I'm like, man, this is like a breath of fresh air. This is like what I would happily have sat down in the cinema, you know, got my coffee and watched. Although it's funny enough, these cinemas, man, it's crazy. They don't have a lot of them don't have coffee. It's crazy, man. I was out of town this past weekend, and I went to an AMC. And it was crazy. They had like a whole bunch they had like a menu of food on the screen. They had like a whole new high-tech screen and all that. They had a whole bunch of food, and at least I didn't see it, but they didn't have any coffee. And that's wild, man. I love, if I'm going to the cinema, man, I'm not having any concessions. I'm there to watch the damn film, man. I'm not there to, chomp down on food. I'm there to watch the film, man, and have my coffee. Oh, there's what, every now and then, hey, man, I get a little hungry. Sometimes I'm munching a little bit of popcorn. That's fine. Hey, that happens. But for the most part, I'm there for the coffee. That's really all I'm there for. Well, the film too. I mean, you know what I mean. I'm there to get my coffee and watch the dang film, man. But yeah, no. So yeah, I don't know. I assume it'll be on Max at some point if you don't want to don't want to rent it for $10. I mean, this is Warner Brothers, so I just keep an eye on it, man. I think that because this is basically in the last week, it just come out on video on demand. I think it's still taking some time to kind of build momentum. But I already saw like Brian Sauer from Just the Discs give a pretty positive review of it on Letterboxd. He's somebody I've mentioned a lot on the show before. I really respect his opinion a lot. He's really kind of turned me on to a lot of great films, and a lot of my taste aligns with his. And he was very positive on it. He was just talking about it's like a good kind of take on 12 Angry Men. I'm like, you know what, I really agree with that. It's cool, man. It's cool stuff, and it's funny. You think about directors who kind of like. I think about a film I saw recently that I think people like, but in terms of a drop off, I think it's definitely there. I'm thinking about like 8 Million Ways to Die, directed by Monty Hellman. I'm sorry, I'm Hal Ashby. For some reason, I always get Monty Hellman and Hal Ashby not mixed up, but I say the wrong name when I'm talking about. I'm like, oh yeah, Hal Ashby did Two Lane Blacktop. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? That's Monty Hellman. I'm like, oh my gosh, what the hell? But Hal Ashby makes Being There, and it's like one of the best films ever made. It's like a brilliant, just beautiful film, and then it's like, man, and in that documentary, Ashby, they're talking about like, oh yeah, like what he did stuff after that. He did like Secondhand Hearts, and then he did like Spend the Night Together. I mean, he did 8 Million Ways to Die wasn't until '86, and it was actually his last film. His last feature film, but it's like Hal Ashby has nothing to prove. He's a great filmmaker. I mean, Shampoo, The Last Detail. I mean, the guy's just a genius, man. I love all of his films. Admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of Harold and Maude. I've seen it a couple times, and I still haven't quite warmed up to it. But even I can tell you, he's a great filmmaker. And that documentary, if you haven't seen it, Ashby. It's just wonderful, man. It's really, really great, and highly recommended. I was recently talking about it being disappointed in that Alan J. Pakula. I always say his name wrong. I was disappointed in that documentary because it wasn't very good. I'm like, man, somebody needs to make a documentary about him, but like how they did with the Ashby one or the De Palma one, which is great too. The just called De Palma that came out a couple years ago, like 2012 or something. I think it was made before Passion was finished because he talks about all of his films up till the Black Dahlia, and then he did Passion, I think in like 2012 after that. Black Dahlia was 2006, and he doesn't talk about that. So they show like clips of it. So I assume that was just finished before they were able to complete the documentary. But those are both great. But yeah, it'd be cool to see somebody do like a kind of a Eastwood kind of retrospective documentary. On top of just being a mostly consistent filmmaker. I mean, he has some ups and downs, but I mean, he's known for being very efficient with his filming. He's always under budget, ahead of schedule. I mean, has his controversy and all that. With especially with Ella Josie Wales, some of the casting situations there. Ironically, it's one of my favorite films by him. But no, he's a fascinating guy. And Juror number 2, if you're like me and you just want something really kind of like just really just engaging and smart, a film just really made for adults. No nonsense. It's just a real good, solid. I hate to even use this word, but I don't want to say throwbacks. That does the film a disservice, but feels like a classic, solid Hollywood drama. And it's really good, man. I thought it was excellent. But with that said, my time is running out. So Christmas is coming up. Make sure you're getting your gifts for your loved ones and your acquaintances, all that. It's a wonderful time of the year to be working on our art and our dreams, our goals, our futures, and making them all a possibility, man. So that's all I got. Thank you so much, and until next time.